Good morning. I am Scott Jarrett, the Maricopa County Elections Director, and we welcome you to the Maricopa County Tabulations and Elections Center. And we are in the Ballot Tabulation Center here today for a logic and accuracy test. Actually, three separate logic and accuracy tests. So we're going to first start off the day with the Secretary of State. So they are doing their logic and accuracy test for the Congressional District Special General Election. We just had our primary election in the month of July, and now we're going to have Election Day is going to be September 23rd. And they've been touring around southern Arizona for last week, doing their logic and accuracy tests in Pima County, Pinal County, Yuma County, Santa Cruz County, Cochise County. Now they're wrapping up here in Maricopa County. Hopefully they'll be able to finish up in about an hour or so, and then we're going to be able to do our political party logic and accuracy tests. I know we have representatives here from the Democratic Party so far. I don't think we have anyone here from the Republican Party or the Libertarian Party yet. They may be coming. And then we'll do the county's logic and accuracy test after we've done those other two. So we're going to go ahead and ask the Secretary of State to get started. They're going to first start by, so they've sealed their ballots, right? And this is a blind test to Maricopa County. We have no idea exactly how many ballots that they've filled out. We don't know how they filled out those ballots. So they're going to unseal those ballots. They're also going to have to vote on our accessible voting devices so they can print some ballots using those accessible voting devices to test those ballots on our central county equipment. As we go through the test this morning, I'll be taking you to the various stations that we're beginning, but please don't wait for me. Go ahead and get started. We have Lisa Mara, the State Elections Director, and her team here to begin this logic and accuracy test. So, and then the political parties. So before we do every logic and accuracy test, they make sure that we have no ballots already tabulated and included in those results. That's something we call the zero report. So we've just printed off that zero report from the election management system. And so they're verifying that it's zeros. And then they're going to go to each of the pieces of equipment that we're going to use in this election and make sure that there's no ballots that have been run on those as well. So we're starting with a blank slate. So as part of this test today, we're going to be testing the central county equipment that we'll be using to tabulate all the early ballots and then provisional ballots. We're going to be using our high-speed scanners, HiPro 2, HiPro 3, and HiPro 4, as well as our Canon scanner. And then we'll be testing also 4 vote center tabulators today as well. Those were randomly selected by the Secretary of State for us to test. We will be having a total of 20 vote center tabulators in this election.
Looking behind you to check the zeros.
So here we can see the political party representative going and verifying that we have 0 ballots run on each of our pieces of equipment. I can bring you closer here. So these are what they're looking at. So you'll see a batch number 1. So this is the first batch that will be run on the equipment. You'll see 0. It's a batch size of 0 so far because they haven't run any ballots. Total ballots accepted 0, and then the average batch is 0. So each of our pieces of equipment will have those same 0 starting points. And they're also going to have to verify our zeros on our precinct-based tabulators as well. And they'll sign off on that. So they're going to have to run the tally receipts. And this is very similar to what our poll workers do on Election Day. So these tabulators are only used on Election Day to count Election Day ballots. And so the poll workers will have to enter in, they'll have to have a security token, they'll have a unique password that's specific to that election, and then they'll use that password to log in, and then they're going to run a 0 report and verify that no ballots have been run through the equipment. And for this election, because there's only one contest on the ballot, it's a very short tally receipt. So in a general election, when we have 85 contests on our ballot. That receipt is very, 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 very long when they run those zero reports.
Yeah, this is such a small receipt. Oh, great. Thank you. Of course.
So for this special general election, there's, I think, just over about 420 or maybe just shy of 430,000 total voters in Congressional District 7. Now, the majority of those voters are in Pima County, so that's where Tucson is located. I think they have like 266 or 270,000 total voters. The next largest number of voters is in Yuma County, just shy of 60, so 59,700 or 800. And then Maricopa County comes in third for this congressional district at, again, just over 59,700. So we're just shy of Yuma County. And then the next highest number of registered voters is Santa Cruz County. I'm not sure the exact number. I think it's over 30. And then Cochise County has about 17. And then Pinal County rounds us up. They only have a couple precincts that are in Congressional District 7, and they have less than 4,000 voters for this election. And today ends up being the voter registration deadline. So 29 days before Election Day is the voter registration deadline. That's established by state law. So voters have until, so if in Maricopa County, if you go to the recorder's office, you have until close of business today, 5 p.m. to register to vote. But you can go to Service Arizona, and so that's the website through the MVD, and you can register all the way up until midnight tonight on that online portal. If you live within Congressional District 7 and you want to still participate in this election and you haven't registered. So you can also go to the Secretary of State's website or in Maricopa County, ballot-ready.vote to check your voter registration status, to determine maybe you've moved, maybe you didn't live in Congressional District 7 for the primary election, and now you've moved within Congressional District 7 and you want to participate, you can update your voter registration. So in Maricopa County, CD7 is really the southern portion of Maricopa County, and then there's this real narrow strip that comes up into the West Valley. So a little portion of Goodyear, another little sliver of Avondale, and then Tolleson is what falls in Congressional District 7. Also, the Gila Bend area is included in Congressional District 7 as well. So we're going to go ahead and move over. So you can see the Secretary of State's team. They are actually voting ballots on our accessible voting devices. So we call those ICXs here in Maricopa County. So they're going to be testing. So this is if a voter had a disability and wanted to be able to vote that ballot autonomously, right, without assistance at the voting location. They can use this device. It's a touchscreen device. It also has an ATI, or audio tactical interface. Looks like a video game controller that would allow them to progress through the ballot. Or they can use the touchscreen. And then they also allows for an audio version, so it has headphones. And so the Secretary of State's office will be listening to make sure that we've programmed our ballot correctly, that we've enunciated each candidate's name phonetically correctly, as well as we've done it in both English and Spanish for any of those voters that may want to vote in person. And after this test today, we will actually, one of these accessible voting devices that passes the test, we'll have to deploy it out to our Avondale Vote Center because it will open up on the first day of in-person early voting at 27 days before the election day, this coming Wednesday. So after we successfully pass this test, keeping our fingers crossed that we pass, and then we'll deploy that equipment out so that vote center can open. So we're going to have a total of 8 vote centers open on Election Day. We're opening the first vote center again this coming Wednesday, which is 27 days before Election Day. And then we're going to open up 2 additional vote centers on September 19th. So that's going to be the Friday before Election Day. And so that'll be the last day of early voting. And they'll be open that day from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then they'll be open, all 3 vote centers, the Avondale Vote Center, the Gila Bend Vote Center, and the Tolleson Vote Center are the ones that are opening on that Friday, September 19th. Then they'll go to, on the Saturday, emergency voting. That's the first day of emergency voting. They'll be open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on the Monday before Election Day, those 3 vote centers again will be open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we'll have our 8 vote centers that will be open on Election Day, and then the hours are set by state statute for Election Day at, they open at 6 a.m. in the morning, and they're open all the way until 7 p.m. on election night. And any voter that's standing in line on election night at 7 p.m. is allowed to vote and cast their ballot. Now, if they show up shortly thereafter, they won't be able to cast that ballot. We actually have our marshal going right at the moments, right at 7 p.m. on election night. The marshal goes and stands at the end of the line, so we can then control and make sure that any voters that arrive by 7 p.m. are able to cast their ballot. Anyone that arrives after, unfortunately, they're turned away. But then they'll be reminded that the hours are 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Election Day. So here they are, the Secretary of State's team, voting those ballots. And the reason they have to do this test first is because they'll vote these ballots, and then they're going to print out a paper ballot that gets included in the test of our central county equipment. So that's one of, a rumor out there or a myth that in Arizona we don't use paper ballots. And in Arizona, 100% of voters actually vote using a paper ballot. If a voter has a disability and they want to use our accessible voting device, they do use this touchscreen device, but it does print out that paper ballot, and then the voter is able to verify all the contests that they selected and then feed that into the tabulator on election day. So one of the things that you notice is the Secretary of State's team is filling out a checklist that they're completing, and they're using red pens. So the only pens that are allowed in our ballot tabulation center and throughout anywhere that we're handling ballots is red. And the reason we have red pens is because, we have to fill out paperwork and chain of custody paperwork and all these logs throughout as we're tabulating ballots. But our tabulation equipment does not read red ink. So if one of our staff members, as they're filling out those logs, maybe if they inadvertently drop the pen, right, and then that pen were to make a mark on the ballot, then it wouldn't impact the results that are on the ballot because our tabulation equipment does not read red ink. And that's just one of the many security or checks and balances that we have throughout the entire process. So this is an incredibly secure facility, but we have to balance that security with transparency, right? So part of that transparency is here today. We have this live video stream for any members of Maricopa County, our community members, to watch as we do our work. We also have live video stream cameras, right, that you can go to our website at maricopa.vote and click onto the live streams and watch as we do our work 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You can watch as we do our work here. I often refer to this, if you come in on a tour, you can cancel any of your streaming services or your cable. We can save you some money, and you can watch us do our work here at our counting center. But so that's part of the transparency measures. Other transparency is the political party observers. So we invite those political party observers, so whether they're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green, no labels now, to come in and watch us as we do our work. In our ballot tabulation center, each party can have 2 observers in this room as we're doing our work. They can also appoint observers in other areas that ballots are being processed. So in the recorder's office, they handle signature verification in Maricopa County. They invite observers into that area to watch them perform signature verification. Then under the Board of Supervisors and the Elections Department, we separate that ballot from the envelope, creating that secret ballot. We allow observers to go into that space as well. So that's a security measure. Other security measures is physical security. So we have outside of our counting center here, we have a gate that restricts access. And right, you have to have badge access or be buzzed in by someone at our front desk, allowing you into the building. But then even once you get past those gates, we have additional badge access on our front doors. And then here in our counting center, this is very restricted. You have to have a job responsibility or direct oversight to have badge access into this room. Another security control that we have is none of our equipment here in our tabulation center is connected to the internet. Right, so you can actually go on to our website and watch some videos that we have highlighting all of these different security controls. But we have all this racking up above us. I don't know if we can pivot the camera a little bit to see this exposed racking. So this is where the wires are coming directly from our tabulation equipment, and they're going to a secure server room. And the wires are color coded. So for our tabulation equipment, we have 4 different wires, colored wires. So the blue wires go to our central account equipment. The white wires go to our adjudication stations. A yellow wire goes to one of our printers. And then if you're overlooking in the server room, you're going to see a red wire. And that red wire is going to go from our primary server to our backup server. And then a separate system that's also air-gapped, not connected to the internet, is our duplication station. So if sometimes a voter, maybe when they're filling out their ballot at home, they spill coffee on it or they tear that ballot, and then that ballot can't be read by our tabulation equipment. So that ballot would have to be duplicated so then it can be ran through our tabulation equipment. So our duplication system, that has the green wires that you were just seeing in all of that exposed racking. And then that allows, right, our observers that are in the room to be able to see all the different wires. None of them are leaving this room. They're all exposed, and you can see and verify that this is truly a air-gapped system that's not connected to the internet. So some of the other items that we have for physical security is, so all of our tabulation equipment, we've got our serialized port blockers that we're the only ones that have the keys to that equipment. We actually keep the keys to those serialized port blockers in our secure glass server room, right? So every single port is blocked. And then we also put our equipment in all of them in these security canisters. Let's see if you can see this here, right here, that are also locked. And you have to have a key to be able to access any of our equipment. So one thing that we like to do in elections is have redundancies and backup plans. So right here, our equipment's locked within this security canister. And if you were able to pry this open, what you'd find inside is then a computer, but all those ports would be blocked with a serial number. And again, a port blocker that has a serial number. And each one of those serial numbers are unique to Maricopa County. And you have to have the key that we have, again, that's secured in that secure server room. So the other thing is when we're having, hi Supervisor Stewart, welcome. Thanks for coming in. So one other thing that we do, and I've mentioned the political party observers. So those are the representatives from the communities and the parties that are here providing that important checks and balance that we're doing and observing as we're doing our work here. So before every single shift that we're tabulating, the political party observers will check, just like we did in the logic and accuracy test, the zeros on our equipment. And then they do that after every shift as well. And then they verify that we have not tabulated any ballots when the political party observers are not present or we've invited them in. So there are some times that they may not show up for whatever reason. Now that can't prevent us from progressing. We still have to get the job done, but we've invited them to be here for every shift. So the Secretary of State has started their logic and accuracy test on our deployable equipment. So this is our vote center tabulators. So
Could not be more random. You get to say they don't know how many ballots we're bringing, what the results are, what machines, we pick which machines we want on which batches, like you just couldn't be more random.
How long have you been state elections for?
I have been with the Secretary's office since 2023. I came in for about the first 6 months as Deputy Director, and then Colleen left and I became State Director. Thank you. Before that, I was a county election official in Cochise County for many years. And now I'm here. I was an election.
They're open because
So that
we're
makes all the difference. I don't know, a lot of times it's usually always an attorney, which is good. But I don't know we've ever had a state election director who's been an election official. And having that experience on the ground, knowing what they go through, has made all the difference for me.
So is there anything that you include this that we don't know because it's really good or anything that we do?
No, the ballots are being sent over here. During
I think what's really bad is they sued their election director personally for refusing to break order. I think that's bad. I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should do that.
Well, Supervisor Stewart, I'm going to show you a few of the things. So this equipment right here, so we deliver this out to our polling locations either the day before Election Day
Right.
or the weekend before.
Yeah, I recognize this.
And our poll workers, the night before Election Day, they go and they verify all these tamper evident seals that we'll install on this
Okay.
equipment. And they verify that those numbers match a chain of custody document that we send out to the voting location. It's called a precinct ballot report. So there will be all these seals. Right now they're not affixed completely because we've got to do the test, right? And we've got to run the receipts, replace the receipt tape, right? But this door will get a tamper evident seal. This door will have it. These doors will have tamper evident seals as well.
Okay.
There's 2 memory cards here. This one right here is the poll worker memory card. This is the administrative door memory card.
Okay.
They're encrypted. So these, again, will have tamper evident seals affixed to them. And then on election night, let's back up to the morning of Election Day. So the poll workers, they each have a unique password that's specific to that election. They have a security token that they need to be able to log into that. Now, that's not the most secure token. That only gives the poll workers access to do a few things. They can run a zero report. They can run the results report. They can verify that, like sometimes they need to update the time or date.
Okay.
Because the equipment's been powered off until they get there at the voting location. So those are the types of things that they can do with that security token.
So the only access to this is through the memory cards?
If the memory cards are not in this machine, it won't even work at all. It's like a brick.
Okay.
Right. So, and those are programmed here in this room, right? And they're specific to that election, right? And that's what then
Who
assigns.
gives us those memory cards?
So we get those specifically from our vendor,
Okay.
right? And we order enough for every election. And then after we've used them once, right, then they go over and they get stored in the treasurer's vault with the ballots for
Okay.
that 24-month retention
In the
period.
treasurer's vault back here.
Oh,
building?
no, it's not in this building. Yeah, it's actually in another
And we have a
another
chain
county
of
building.
custody process for when it leaves here and goes there.
That's right. And so these memory cards, so on election morning, the poll workers will take that security key. They'll have their unique password also that's specific to this election. They'll log in, and then they're going to run a tally receipt just like this. That's going to have zeros, right? And they're verifying that not one ballot's been tabulated on that equipment, and that every vote tally for every single contest and every single candidate in question is zero. And then they sign off on this at on election morning, right? And then they open it up. Election day comes, voters come in and they insert their ballots throughout election day. And one of the unique things about these is if a voter overvoted a contest. So overvoting means they filled in more ovals than what's allowed. So it's a vote for one, right? And they filled in 2 ovals.
Right.
It will alert the voter that they've overvoted that contest. So this screen readout would say, you overvoted the contest, let's say for U.S. Senator, right? And then it would allow that voter to return the ballot, right? So it gets fed in, and let's say they overvoted multiple contests. All the contests would be listed here that they overvoted. And then they can hit return, and the ballot will be fed back out of the machine, and the voter can look and say, oh, yep, I did overvote that contest. And they can make a choice. They can either spoil that ballot, go back and check in at the voting location, get a new ballot, and then vote it without overvotes. Or maybe they say, I'm really pressed for time, I don't want to check in, I'm just going to go ahead and allow that to be an overvote, and they can feed it.
On that particular item, their vote won't be registered.
Well, and that's
It'll be registered as an overvote.
That's
but
right.
It won't be registered as a tally.
That's right. It won't go to any specific candidate, and that I'm glad you bring that up, because we register every single oval, whether it's an undervote, an overvote, and all of that gets reported at the precinct level for every single contest, every single vote.
Okay.
We're going to vote for candidates, and all of that as part of the post-election process, election day, those audits that I'm doing, that I will take to you and your colleagues on the board, right? And you're going to do a certifying of the results, which is also called a canvass, on canvassing. So we will have done that to that level of detail to make sure every single result in every single precinct and every single contest reconciles before we take that to you to vote on.
We also have a process with this where all of the ballots that go in here then have the opportunity to be, or I guess they're all aggregated, and then at the end there is a minimal hand count of a certain percentage of ballots, right?
That's correct. So
and that's got to line up with what this thing tabulates.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, and so a few different things. All this post-election audits that happen. So one thing is at every single voting location, as ballots are being fed through here, and they've already ran a few ballots, they've pulled some of the cards, it will tally how many ballots went through. There's going to be a counter right here. So the poll workers on that precinct ballot report that they're logging all these serial numbers, they're going to say, let's just say there was 970 voters that voted, that checked in at our voting locations. And then we'll have 2 tabulators on site, right? And then they'll have to have, let's say, 400 ballots were tallied on this one, and 570 were tallied on this. Then you have this perfect match, right? The number of ballots matching the number of check-ins. Okay. But sometimes, right, if a voter's filling out their ballot, they may make a stray mark in the timing marks, right? And if they do that, this tabulator is not going to read that ballot. So then we're going to have a misread door that the voters can insert that ballot into, which will be on this side. They'll put it right here, right? And then those ballots will come back here on election night. Okay. And then there's going to be a chain of custody. We have the big white misread envelope that's assigned to that specific location with the label. And the poll workers will then pull those ballots out at the end of the night. They'll hand count how many of them there are. They'll put them in that envelope, and then they'll write the number on the outside of it. And then they'll seal it with this tamper evidence seal, and then they sign over it. Right, and then so on after election day, I'm doing my audits with my team, right, and we'll say, we have 970, but we're actually short 4 ballots. Well, hopefully those 4 ballots are in that misread envelope, right? So that we're gonna, and typically that's where they are.
Then do you canvass those misread envelopes? Are they discarded?
Nope, they will be counted, right? And so what we do is we invite the political party observers
And we
in,
look through each one of them.
right? And so we'll have them all here, and we don't do it, right? We invite them in, and that's sort of a unique day, right? So the political party observers really like to be here for that.
Yeah.
So we let them know we're doing our post-election audit, and we're doing the misread envelopes. So we'll invite them in here, and then and sometimes, so the training used to be, and we have poll workers that have worked for us, and we thank them so much for their service, but 2 or 3 decades,
Okay.
right? And the training 2 decades ago used to be on election night. You'd take those ballots out, and then you'd try to feed them back in through the tabulator at the end of the day on election night. We no longer do that because, right, if they overvoted that ballot, right, that gave that voter the chance because they overvoted a contest. Because we do electronic adjudication here, we've trained our poll workers not to do that anymore. But sometimes a poll worker remembers their old training from 2 decades ago. So then they'll pull those ballots out and they feed them in through here, right, on election night. And then sometimes that poll worker will then just let them in, go in there, and they're tabulated.
Okay.
Or sometimes they catch the ballots, those 4 ballots, put them back in the misread envelope, right, and then seal those up and send it back to us. So that's why that audit, there's all these different variables that we're checking to make sure that we have that perfect match.
On this particular area, when somebody goes to put their ballot in, are there observers assisting at the time? I think
So not assisting, they're observing.
Observing,
Right,
right.
so the only place
And this-
actually,
and just to be clear, assisting versus observing, why is that a distinct word choice?
yeah, so an observer in a voting location, they're only allowed to observe the process. They can't interfere and they can't interact with any of the voters.
So on that overvote ballot that goes through, that gets kicked,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who's going to share with that voter what happened?
The poll worker.
The poll worker.
The poll, so we
So they'll go back, find the poll worker. And the poll
well,
worker.
actually, we have poll workers
what I
manning
meant.
these sites.
Okay,
Yeah, not
yeah,
observers.
not
We'll
but
have
there will be observers too, so there'll be multiple
Yeah,
people standing in this area.
That's right,
Helping or watching and helping.
And,
Yeah.
and we train our poll workers not to read the ballot, right? Because a voter, they have a right to a secret ballot, right? But we train them to sort of instruct the voter, right? So the poll workers aren't supposed to be pushing these buttons, right?
Sure, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we want the voter to be the one that says, nope, I want it returned, or nope, I want it cast.
Okay.
Right, so the voter presses those buttons. But the poll worker may say, here's, so you can either hit green for cast or red for return, right? Or there's a message here on the screen. Like, so let's say a voter circled all the ovals instead of filling them in, right? If they did that for every single contest, this is going to alert them that they have a blank ballot, right? So it's being fed into the and then it says blank ballot, and then they can return it, and then the poll worker may say, you may want to go to the voting booth and actually fill in those ovals.
Scott, how do we ensure that the software in this particular machine is safe on day of voting?
Yeah.
So, for example, when is it? How do you program it, or how do you update it?
Yeah.
If there's new security patches that's put on it, et cetera.
Great question. So we can only use the software that's approved at the federal government, so at the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission. So let's say there's a security patch that needs to be updated to this equipment. The vendor will have to then program their equipment with that security patch. It will have to go through federal certification, right? And then after it goes through federal certification, it will have to go through state certification, right? And then once it goes through state certification, then that's what allows us to install that upgrade onto this equipment, right? And then before every election, so actually just last week on August 18th, we did something called a hash code verification test. So we pulled all the hash codes from all.
What's a hash code?
So it's like a fingerprint, right? Unique to that specific software, right, and to this
Passcode's
equipment.
the same on all of these.
Yep. So, well, this one will have a slightly different one than our Central County equipment, right, and others, but we pull the hash codes. And this is what says these unique fingerprints of the software that's installed in this equipment matches exactly what's on file at the Secretary of State's office and what's on file at the U.S. Elections Assistance. So then when we've got a match, a perfect match saying that it's all federally certified and can be used within the state, then we do this test, our logic and accuracy test. It can only be programmed in this room, right? So if someone else using this equipment that has the Dominion, their ballots won't work on this because this is unique to our specific election. We're going to lock this up, right? These encrypted memory cards. It's all going to be sealed, right? And the poll workers are going to verify all of this is sealed up with these unique seals before they even open up. So that's what's verifying that it hasn't been tampered with or altered. We're using this federal...
Physically, and then from a software perspective, you're talking about the process goes to the federal elections commission, and then it goes to the state election after they approve it.
Yeah.
Then it comes to us. What does the state do?
So
Approve it?
they have a committee, right, made up of a engineer from one of the state universities that understands technology incredibly well. They have a lawyer that's licensed through the state bar that's on that committee as well, and then an election expert, someone that understands this equipment. So they sit on the committee, and then any time, even the smallest little de minimis change that needs to be rolled out, right, after it's got certified by the federal U.S. Elections Assistance Commission, then they'll test it in a public hearing that people are allowed to go to, right? And then they'll test that equipment, right, in there and make sure that change, and they'll specifically test that change to make sure it works, right? And then after that,
We have no hand in that then.
we have no
It
hand.
gets to us, they're like, okay, yeah, do the patch, do the code update, and
Yeah.
then we're off to the races.
So, but
And
then
how
we
many of
have
these
to,
machines do you have to do when you do that code update?
so every single one, because none of them are connected to a network or an internet. So we have 550 of these tabulators. So it's our staff.
So everything's updated through like an SD card or a memory card.
That's right.
There's no connection to the internet at all.
Through these, that's
Do they
that's
even
correct.
have an act? Like, do they even have
So,
software that allows that?
so
Because I'm guessing some states.
yes,
allow
some
internet
states do allow. Actually, in Arizona, we allowed it prior to 2012. So what we had was receiving sites, and we called them memory pack sites here in Maricopa County, where the poll workers would deliver the ballots and the memory cards, and then they would upload the results from that receiving site here to the central count, and then that was all connected to the internet.
Gotcha.
We've moved away from that entirely. And one of the reasons why, and why that federal certification, that state certification, the equipment's been tested, right, is because, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, and this happens almost every single day, but
Right.
like a company goes through and they roll out an update. And that update has some unintended consequence. Like I remember, I forget the exact year, like 3 or 4 years ago, all these gas stations and fuel stations on the East Coast went down, right? And so then for like 3 or 4 days, there was no gas stations or fuel stations open because they pushed out an update that the fuel
crashed.
station that crashed their
Do
system.
we have a window where we won't allow updates?
Yeah, so that's why we will always.
How much time? Do you know off the top of your head? Like,
So we have we'll do, so right now, after it goes through all those different certifications, we actually have one that we can roll out, 5.20. We have an upgrade, and it was approved by the Secretary of State's office in April. But because we've been in a continuous election since, we've been May, July, now September, November, we're going to roll it out in January.
okay, there may be an update that comes in since then too, right?
Potentially, yes. But then we have to have the time, because not only it's our staff that installs it. So we'll get a certified copy of that new software from the voting system testing laboratory. That's the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission certified vendor that can test this equipment and certify it for use. They send us a certified build for that equipment, and then our staff is what updates it and installs it on this equipment. And we do end user acceptance testing. Then we do our own logic and accuracy
And then
testing.
we'll do another, okay, then we'll do another test after this. So the latest update that just came through, that won't go into December or January, because we've got an election to run, so we're not going to tamper's not the right word, but we're not going to update this software with that patch that just came through, because we just don't have that window of time.
The window of time, and for us to do all the end user acceptance
That's
testing.
great. Okay, well, good. And so today's event is just about testing those, I'll call them computers over there for ADA compliance, right?
Actually, we have 3 logic and accuracy tests going on today.
Okay.
Right now we're in the Secretary of State's logic and accuracy test.
Okay.
So they first start with the accessible voting devices.
Right.
So that's we have one of those machines at every single voting location. If someone had a disability,
Right.
it allowed them to vote autonomously.
Okay.
Right? They could vote unassisted, right? And it has an audio tactical interface. An ETI looks like a video game controller, and
saw it,
allows
yeah,
them
yeah.
to progress through. They'll print out the ballot, the paper ballots. So they're doing that first, and then they're going to test our central county equipment
Yeah.
and this equipment to make sure that, and it's a blind test.
Okay.
We have no idea how many ballots they filled out, what ovals they filled out, and those results are going to have to match perfectly.
Real quick, do we have enough of these?
Well, so thanks.
For the
to-
gubernatorial election and then the
Thanks
presidential
to you and your colleagues on the board. They just approved an additional 550 of these machines because state law just changed. That will allow, now it doesn't go into effect until January 2026.
Yeah.
That will allow voters, if
We
they
don't
have
need them
their,
for this special election.
Yeah.
We don't have as many people vote.
but if a voter has that early ballot, right? So in Maricopa County, we have those voters that show up on election day
Yeah.
with that early ballot in hand. Now they'll be able to check in, right? And then take that ballot out of that affidavit envelope and run it through tabulation equipment. Now we'll still program these just to accept election day ballots,
Okay.
right? Because we don't want the chance for double voting to occur.
Sure.
But we'll have a different set in our voting locations that will be programmed to allow those early ballots. And then we can do that post-election audit. So we have enough equipment with that approval of that budget during that last cycle. And I thank you and your colleagues for approving that for
Good.
us.
Well, and I think that's the key, right, is to make sure that you've got everything that you need, and you have backup printers, backup machines, backup, ADA compliant voting centers, et cetera. What are we doing here?
All right, so now they're going to get ready to start the central count,
Okay.
the central count equipment.
Gotcha.
So, and so we do before every election these 3 logic and accuracy tests.
Right.
Right now it's the Secretary of State's, then it's going to be the political parties. So what we do,
When's the-
today. So right after we pass the Secretary of State's test, so the question was, when is the next test? So after we pass the Secretary of State's test, then the political party representatives will be here. And one of the criticisms we used to got was, this is a predetermined result. So we actually let them, give them ballots, and they'll go into a completely different separate room, and they'll mark up the ballots. They'll overvote them. They'll leave one blank. They'll write little notes on them,
Yeah.
right? And then they bring those ballots that they just filled out, and they run through this, and they'll do a hand count
Okay.
up in that other room
That's happening later today.
Okay. And then we do
Are they
the
doing that
counting.
together?
Yeah. So, and we have the political parties there. So if we have the Libertarian, Republican, Democrat,
At the same time?
at the same time, all filling out their ballots, right? And then they bring
make
them in
them
here.
hold hands.
Yeah, and then they run them through the tabulators,
Okay.
and then we verify that they match the results that they hand counted upstairs. Now we only do 10 ballots, so it's easier for them to hand count. 10 ballots each, right? And then they can fill them out any
And the
different
hand
way.
count's the very same thing that we do with the post-election hand count.
The post-election
we're
hand count, yeah.
verifying that a percentage of the ballots match up to what the tabulators
That's
say.
right, that's correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then after the political party test, we'll do the county test,
Okay.
which is and we do more ballots than the Secretary of State. Now for this, so they're just now start.
Scott, thanks, buddy. I've got a executive session counting in a little bit, but I might come back. Are you
Absolutely.
going to do this again, or is this is the day
Um,
before this election? But we're going to do it again next year.
We'll have a post logic and accuracy test after election day, and after we've completed counting all the ballots, and then we'll have another logic and accuracy test for the November jurisdictional. But this will be the only one we do for this election, CD7.
All right, great. Thanks for doing this.
Great, thank you.
Get back to your regular scheduled program.
All right.
See you.
So now we've moved on to our central count tabulation equipment. So for this election, we're going to have, and I think I've mentioned this before, but 3 high-speed tabulators and 1 Canon tabulator that we will use for the election. So that's why we're not testing this other equipment, because it won't be used to count ballots for the CD7. This equipment is incredibly quick and fast. So if we had 85 contests on the ballot like we had on average for the last general election in 2024, it could run 8,000 ballots per hour through that equipment. Now, it's actually a little bit slower than that because the human operators have to fill out all that chain of custody paperwork, and that slows the equipment down a little bit. And so really it's rated, once we are using those paper logs, about 4,000 ballots per hour on these high-speed tabulators. Mm-hmm. I think we're stabilizing the camera, so.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so we've run all the ballots through.
Yes, and you need to tell
All right, so while they're stabilizing the camera again, we're going to move over to our electronic adjudication stations.
Yes.
Stand right in the middle.
Accuracy over speed. There'll be the program. You came over here pretty quickly.
So for electronic adjudication, this occurs when a ballot, so any of our tabulation equipment can't determine a voter's intent. There's a few different reasons that may cause our tabulation equipment not to be able to determine a voter's intent. The first and the most common is if a voter wrote in a write-in candidate. Right, so they would fill in the oval for a write-in candidate, and then they'll write the name. Well, our tabulation equipment can't read handwriting. So these adjudication boards, and they have to be bipartisan, have to be a Republican and a Democrat And those are the two judges. And then an independent inspector makes up the three-party adjudication board. They will be reviewing to see, is that a qualified write-in, or is that a write-in vote for maybe Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck? And believe it or not, some people do vote for Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. So they'll be reviewing the ballots if there's write-in votes. Also, they'll be reviewing to determine if there's an overvote. So we talked about overvotes earlier today. So an overvote would be if there are, so say it's a vote for one contest, which this Congressional District 7 ballot, it is, right? The U.S. Representative, it is a vote for one, right? So if they filled in 2 ovals or 3 or 4 ovals in that contest, that would be an overvote. Well, we send those, every single ballot that has an overvote comes to a electronic adjudication board to determine if it's a true overvote, right? Because one thing is maybe a voter changed their mind, right? They filled in 2 ovals and they crossed through one of those ovals and said, not this one, yes to this one. So then in that case, they can determine voter intent. Our equipment wouldn't have been able to because both ovals were filled in. But if they've corrected it, the electronic adjudication board could then review that ballot and assign a vote. Also, sometimes voters will use check marks when they're filling in their ballot. And not enough of the oval is filled in, right? So that's creating an ambiguous mark. But if they consistently use check marks throughout their ballot, our electronic adjudication board, that bipartisan team, can then review it and say, yep, I can determine voter intent. And then they can assign that vote. So when they're doing that, they're filling out a manual handwritten log of every single action that they're taking, and then they'll compare that manual handwritten log with the system-generated log and make sure that they match perfectly before we then import those results into our election management system. So currently we're loading in the results into the adjudication system, so they'll be loading here shortly. So the staff that work in this role, many of them do get appointed by the political parties, right? So the political parties will send us a list of people that they would like us to hire, so those county chairs. And so, and then we'll do our best to try to hire from that list. Now, sometimes we're not able to just because we'll need these boards to work for us for a few different weeks. Maybe the person they submitted was only available for a day or two. And there's a significant amount of training that goes into to make sure that these adjudication boards are competent and capable to do this role. So we'd want them to work for that entire period of time. So that would be really the only reason why we wouldn't hire from that list, or if for some reason one of the people they submitted to us, maybe they had a family emergency or something, wasn't able to work. But if the political party, the county chairs from those parties gave us an individual to hire from, we'll do our best to hire from that list.
It's like waiting for cookies to be done.
That's right.
Waiting. The suspense.
So the Secretary of State's office does have a sense of humor because there was just a write-in vote for Donald Duck. And not only in our test, but voters actually do vote for Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. So in Maricopa County, we have 23 precincts. And so for this election, we had to create 46 different ballot styles for those 23 precincts. A federal-only ballot style and a standard ballot style. Now, this is a federal contest, but because we are required to report the number of federal voters that cast a ballot in this election, we keep those ballot styles separate. Also, we have a different ballot style for election day, early, or provisionals. So those 46 times 3 would be just over 140 total different ballot types than for this election. Because we're required to report out results at that precinct level. They may be done with electronic adjudication. I think they're verifying that there's no more that need to be sent to the boards. Okay, so they've wrapped up electronic adjudication. They're going to pull results, and then we'll have the political party observers review those results and compare them with the Secretary of State's predetermined results to make sure that they match. And so after this test, we'll be taking a short break while the political party observer test occurs. And then once they've completed filling out their ballots, we'll come back and start again. That one will go very fast. And then we'll have to re-zero again so we can start the county's test from a blank slate. And in a general election or a primary election that's not a special election, this is actually one of the parts that takes the longest, because it will be 100+ page report that they have to review and compare those results. For this election, it's a 1 page with one single contest, so it should go pretty quickly.
Hot off the printer press. Jeff, are you gonna be the lucky one with results?
Sure.
Okay.
So now we're gonna.
Do you have a Republican observer?
Uh,
Okay, great. Perfect. Then these are the sealed results we brought. Sealed, cameras, sealed.
mm.
So you'll want to open those, and then you'll double check against what you show your results being.
So what Lisa Mara just mentioned, she just brought in the sealed results. This is their predetermined results. So they're going to check their total number. Well, I'm going to let Lisa say it herself.
You want to just read
Okay.
them off, you can leave.
What do you want me to say?
Describe what they're doing.
Okay,
Read them off.
this is the exciting part. So they're comparing our results that we brought in the sealed envelope to what you printed out in your EMS. And the first thing we always have to look at is the total number of ballots cast. We had 429 ballots, and your results show 429. Now they're going through step by step, candidate by candidate, checking the results. So far everything matches. And they're also then going to review the write-in candidates to make sure you adjudicated all the ones we had on the test.
Great. Thank you for that explanation, Lisa.
You see one? Yes?
Avery Block, 1.
One,
Samuel Hatch, 1.
one,
David McAllister, 1.
one,
Trista De Geneva, 1. James Rose, 1. Daniel Wood, 1.
one. And then do you have Cheval Vapors? Or Nathaniel Irwin? Because those are both 0, so I assume they're not on that list because of.
Because there were no votes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we unfortunately don't have the nice EMS system they have. What we do is we have the little tabulators from election day, so we have all the tapes. And so that's how we pull out those results. So if they're under votes, we don't.
So all results were a perfect match. So we just passed the Secretary of State's logic and accuracy test. So after we
So congratulations, Maricopa. You have another successful alphabet test.
Just a-
Good job. Thank you so much to the observers for being here to do this, because it's such an important part, and we couldn't do it without you.
So now that we've passed that test, we are going to take a short little break. Again, we have to re-zero out, and then the political parties are going to go upstairs, going to fill out their ballots, and so we can do their tests. So that will take, I don't know, maybe about 20-ish minutes, and then we'll be back. So we're going to take that short little break now. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so we are back for the political party logic and accuracy test, and we do have Chairman Berland with us. So they are currently checking the zeros, again, making sure that we have we were able to zero out from the Secretary of State's logic and accuracy test and starting with that blank slate. So they're currently looking at our vote center tabulators, making sure that there's no ballots that have been run through those and the results are all zero. Then they'll do the central count equipment, and then we're going to run the ballots that the political parties filled out. Each party was given 10. We had some available for the Libertarians or Green if they were to attend, but they decided not to. So we just have the Republican and Democrat. Again, each had 10, and they're able to fill out the ballot any way that they want. They have some ballots for our vote center tabulators and our central count tabulators. And we're going to run those through. They may have sent some to adjudication. We don't know. They hand counted those to get some results. And so then we'll verify the system generated results with the hand count results to see if they match. Okay, so then we've done the central count, the early ballots, and now we're running the election day ballots through. So we just did the Democrat ballots, now we're doing the Republican. Right, so we've now run the election day, so we're going to have to close the polls, just like our poll workers would do on election night. After they close those polls, they'll be able to remove the memory card, and then we'll read that memory card into the election management system. This test goes pretty quick. And then after we've compared the results for this, we'll have to re-zero out. So that process will take probably longer than this entire test. All right, so now we're going to go read in those results, and we can aggregate those and combine them with the early ballots. And they may have sent some to adjudication, so we'll have to check. There's 20 ballots total. And again, we don't know how many have a reason or a cause that would have them go to adjudication. Well, for sure, at least 3. Oh yeah, an overvote on this one, a write-in vote on this one, an overvote on this one. Looks like a corrected vote. Another one. Oh, and this one's for Mickey Mouse. Yeah. Okay, that might be it. Yeah, that was it. Now we can run the results. Oh, the sealed results? Okay. All right. The sealed results from the hand count have arrived. It's going to be exciting.
I can't wait. Bated breath.
All right. So, Renee, you want to do the Chairman Berlin? You want to come over? Let's pull up a chair. All right, Renee, you want to do the honor, unseal, and compare?
All right.
We'll see how good the hand counters were.
Okay. So we have 10 early vote, 10 election day, 20 total ballots.
That matches.
Okay, and then times cast 20, 0 undervotes, 1 overvote.
It says 2 overvotes.
2 overvotes. So we don't have a match here. 0 overvotes, 1 undervote. You have 2 overvotes. Okay. And then for results, we have Grijalva 5.
4.
Yeah,
4. Okay.
I wonder if it's
Gutierrez
adjudication.
7. It probably
I'm
Adjudication.
pretty sure it is.
Gutierrez
I know what it
7.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a vote for Geraldo and then a write-in for Geraldo.
Ah, so the candidate on ballot should have been rejected.
Right.
And it looks like it wasn't. Okay, so it looks like we need to redo adjudication. All right.
Okay. All right, so there was
In here, since we're not matching,
adjudication where there was a candidate on ballot issue where they should have rejected the vote.
okay, so we need to bring adjudication back in.
Mm-hmm.
So who's doing adjudication? Jackie.
Jackie.
I'll go. So it was. So we're gonna bring the ballot back through. Candidate on ballot was not rejected. So we need to go back through, just so it's nice and slow. Voted on ballot and written in and rejected. I want to make sure we do it right. Okay, now it's red, we reject. That was it. Okay. Are we ready, Elisa? Okay.
Put that to the side. All right.
Okay, so early vote 10, it's election day 10 for a total of 20. We have 20 times cast, 0 undervotes, 1 overvote. And then for Grijalva, we have 5, Gutierrez 7, Quintana 3, and Grayson 3. And then we have write-ins, 1 not qualified.
Yeah.
And 19, you should have 20 total votes.
Well,
You do.
19, but
19
then
total.
with the
Plus
overvote.
one,
Yeah.
And then, yep.
Okay, so we have a match. All right.
Yay, great.
All right. So now we need to re-zero out, and we can do the county, logic and accuracy.
Void or no.
Yeah.
We should mark void on that.
We can go let our deputy elections director back in. She was sequestered. All right, so we're going to take a short little break, re-zero out, be back in a minute. Okay, so we are back now for our final logic and accuracy test of the day. This is going to be the county test, and the political parties are checking zeros on our central count equipment. They just finished. Now they're going to head over to our vote center tabulators to check the zeros on those. And then we'll be able to run our ballots. So for our test, we also do a quality assurance test, which is going to be testing some common issues that voters sometimes fill out with their ballots just to make sure that our tabulation equipment handles those. That's going to be some ballots that are stuck together that will cause a double-fed ballot to go through the tabulator. Definitely a blank ballot, an overvoted ballot, and a torn ballot. So, and we'll have our deputy elections director that usually runs that quality assurance deck. And we do that on both the vote center tabulators as well as our central count tabulators. So when we get to that piece, since it's pretty unique compared to the last two logic and accuracy tests, we'll walk through each ballot one by one.
That's right, so I'm not gonna sign it.
Yeah, so right now we're all gonna raise their sign it. You're confirming that you saw that tabulator 4 was 0. Oh, sorry. This is this is the one from the party LNA. Oh. Raise 0 to that, yeah. I don't think we normally have you guys sign it. This is the EMS 0. Thank you.
Hey, Robin, there's 3 other.
As I found out, yes.
All right, now that we've signed our zeros, we're going to vote the accessible voting devices.
So they're voting the accessible voting devices. They'll have a few ballots that they'll include, and they'll print and include in the logic and accuracy test. Right now, our tabulation manager is verifying that when they filled out the ballots on the accessible voting device that they marked them the way that we had intended them for the test. few more to verify. Okay, so we're now going to do our central count and our vote center tabulators.
All right, six is over here? Yep. All right, start at your own pace.
Do you have your quality assurance? And we'll do the quality assurance here in a sec. Yep. Adrian, I want to show the quality assurance deck. So we're going to run the last few of these vote center tabulator ballots, and then we'll do the quality assurance. Sometimes we refer to it as the disaster deck, but it's essentially common issues that when voters sometimes fill out their ballots, or maybe they get, especially for central count, something sticky on them. So all right, so this first one's going to be an overvote. So as the overvote, right, when the voter puts in their ballot, the screen should notify the voter that they've overvoted a contest. It allows them to scroll down. It tells them exactly what contest they overvoted. And then it allows them to return or cast it. In this case, they'll return it, and and they'll say, yep, it's an overvote. I don't want to count that. And they'll spoil that ballot and go get a new one potentially.
Mike is next.
Same thing, the tabulator should notify the voter that this is a completely blank ballot. Again, the screen notifies the voter. They can go through, see that they have a blank ballot, and then they can return it.
Next one's a provisional.
So our tabulators on election day out at the voting locations are only programmed to accept election day ballots, not early ballots or provisional ballots. So this is a provisional ballot, so we're going to attempt to insert it into the tabulator, and it should reject it. So invalid ballot, because the tabulator is not programmed to accept provisional ballots.
Early?
And this is an early ballot, so same sort of error should happen. So an invalid ballot. Okay.
Down election.
And so also this is a ballot from the primary election. So also ballot. So it rejected this ballot because the ballot code and the timing marks aren't available to be tabulated by our tabulation equipment. So we're going to
You can close this one down. I'm going to do the central count.
So, in this one, the test is slightly different because for early voting, we get different types of situations that occur. So, a red pen ballot, so sometimes voters will fill out their ballot with a red pen. Now, we train our pre-tabulation processing boards to identify this. So when they're separating that ballot from the envelope, and so if they identify that, this ballot would have to go to duplication in order to be counted because our tabulation equipment won't read red ink. So it's going to accept the ballot, and then we're going to see this ballot actually in adjudication, but none of the ovals will be filled in because it's red ink. So this is a damaged ballot that's torn, right? So in the timing mark, so the tabulator will not accept this because there's no timing mark for it to read. So you can see here, it reads, exception found on the ballot scanned, ballot misread, ballot was not counted. And you can see the screen where it's showing that black tear right there. So similar to the primary election ballot that we did for the tabulator, we're going to test a primary election ballot. So the one on the precinct-based tabulator was a Democratic primary ballot. This is a Republican. So, and we got an exception ballot timing marks not found, so it's not going to be counted. So this is a double-fed ballot. So again, sometimes voters get sticky things on their ballot, and so then when they go through processing, the ballots end up sticking together. So this will be testing for what would happen with the double-fed ballot, which then would shoot out the back of the machine. And X. And so then we have to go, so this notifies the operator that there was a misfeed in the ballot. This is being caused because of a double-fed ballot. And what we would do in a actual election when we're counting ballots is we'd separate that and then rerun them through to get them tabulated. And if for whatever reason they weren't able to be, then we'd have to duplicate those ballots to have them, the duplicated ballot tabulated. All right, so we are done with running the ballots. Now we have to test adjudication for the county test. Okay, the ballots are loading. Again, so for those watching this portion of the test that maybe weren't watching earlier in the day, we're testing electronic adjudication. And the reason ballots will go to electronic adjudication, it's because when a ballot's going through our tabulators, our equipment can't determine the voter's intent. And there's a few different situations that could cause a ballot for our tabulation equipment not to determine a voter's intent. The most common reason is for a vote for a write-in. Oh, here's from the quality assurance test. So if you saw us when we were feeding that that ballot that was voted with red pen into the tabulator. So this is it. The only reason we know that, right, is because we wrote red pen and not red ink on the ballot so we could see it, but right, none of the ovals are filled in. So that proves, right, that our tabulation equipment can't read red ink, right? And so that's why we use red ink for all of our logs, so that would not impact if we inadvertently drop that pen and mark the ballot. So, but again, the reason our tabulation equipment might not be able to determine a voter's intent, write-in votes. So if a voter wrote in a candidate, our tabulation equipment would be able to read the oval next to the write-in, but they wouldn't be able to read the handwriting. So we need a bipartisan board, Republican and Democrat, then to award that vote to that write-in candidate or to a not qualified write-in candidate. Also, if there's an overvoted contest, so let's say it's a vote for one and a voter filled in more than one oval, then that would be an overvote. So they need to make sure that it's a true overvote and not a situation where the voter corrected their vote. Say maybe they marked through like an X through one of the candidates and said not him or not her, and then yes, this one. So then the human electronic adjudication board can determine voter intent in that situation. Or if it's maybe they've used check marks to fill out their ballot and they haven't filled up enough of the oval, or they've check marked right next to the oval instead of within the oval, these boards can then look at that, review the ballot, and then make sure that they're awarding intent if they can determine intent. All right, so we're going to stay here. We're running results, but they're just to speed up the test a little bit. They're going to go verify the number of ballots that were counted on each of the equipment. They'll log that on our logs while the results report is running. And this is similar to something that we would do after every shift of tabulation. So not only before every shift, the observers go through and they read the number of ballots that were run prior to the last shift, and then after or during the shift, we run the ballots and they'll go through and they'll log and they'll do a count of how many ballots that were read during the shift, and then those observers actually take home those logs with them for that day. They can provide it to their county chairs so then they can see how many ballots that we're tabulating each day. All right, looks like they've read the number of ballots that were tabulated, and we do have our results hot off the presses waiting for them here.
We're going to do some math first, and then we'll read the results.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Have to do the numbers. All right, so we're just going to add it down. All right.
So 545 ballots were
And we'll have you guys
tabulated, run through the equipment.
right there. And then print a name and signature at the bottom.
40 election day results, 20 provisional results for 545 total. We have 4 undervotes and 3 overvotes. Then Grijalva 54, Gutierrez 106, Quintana 158, Grayson 210, write-ins for 10, so there's 538 cast. So then on the write-ins, not qualified 1, Lavers 1, Beasley 1, Block 1, Hatch 1, McAllister 1, Irwin 1, DeGenova 1, Rose 1, Wood 1.
Do we have a match?
So we have a match for our county logic and accuracy test. So that means we've successfully passed all 3 logic and accuracy tests for the day. And our equipment is certified and ready for use for this election. So we're going to go ahead and call that a day. Thank you for tuning in for our live stream this morning. And we'll see you for our next logic and accuracy test, which will be for, we'll do a post logic and accuracy test. We won't do this live stream. You can always log into our website and watch us, but then we'll do another one for the jurisdictional. So thank you. Have a good day.